Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we'll be discussing the recent Supreme Court ruling and drawing some maps in Alabama, which I think will be a lot of fun. For the longtime viewers of the channel dating back to 2021, you'll remember that I used to do stuff like this all the time. I used to draw maps of different states. I believe I actually did Alabama at one point, and I would talk about, what the best outcome for Democrats would be, what the best outcome for Republicans would be, and what the fairest outcome would be. And so this is kind of similar because we are going to draw a fair Alabama map. But I do want to talk about the court ruling first. So in case you didn't hear, on Thursday, I believe, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that the current Alabama congressional map, the one that's on your screen right now, was unconstitutional. And they ruled that because, per Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, this map is a racial gerrymander. And so what that means is that the boundaries of these districts dilute the voting power of a certain minority. And in this case, the demographic that is being, kind of diluted here are black voters. So this map is, textbook racially gerrymandered. As you can see here, we do have a majority black seat, which is the Democratic seat, but there's a lot of tactics that are pretty blatant. So first of all, the city of Mobile, which is, again, the city itself, I believe, is actually plurality black, and it's, a pretty Democratic city when you take out, or when you look at it as a city. Obviously, the county as a whole is not Democratic. When you look at the city, it is. And so Mobile is just put with other Republican areas over here, and it's kind of just diluted. It's thrown in a seat that's a lot more Republican than it as a city is. And we see a similar thing with Montgomery, which is just cracked in half here. The eastern portion of the city is just thrown in with the super Republican rural areas that are, down further south, and it gets, completely washed out. We see that with a few more rural black areas. These areas are cut in half too. Again, these are, counties that are majority black and they're rural, so they don't have a ton of voting power, but when you put them together, they can create bluer districts. But again, they're just cut in half just to, dilute their voting power. And that is illegal per the Supreme Court. It's generally, you can't do that. It's not fair to just crack communities to make it harder for them to elect their representatives of choice. And so now that the court has ruled this map to be illegal, there are going to be instant ramifications that are likely going to hurt Republicans. Again, this map is a Republican gerrymander as well as a racial gerrymander. It, gives Republicans an extra seat that they maybe shouldn't have when you draw it fairly. And so that's going to be fixed in this video. We're going to do that in a second here. But I do want to say, in addition to Alabama getting redrawn, we're likely to see potential redraws in states like Louisiana, South Carolina, and maybe even Florida, because, again, all those states have pretty controversial maps that do, arguably dilute the voting power of certain, voters of color. And so what that does is create, a lot of controversy surrounding those maps, and I would not be surprised if, emboldened by their victory with this Alabama case, we see more Democratic lawyers go on the offensive and, potentially sue states like Louisiana, Florida, and South Carolina for their maps, as well as North Carolina too, but that's a different story. So we're just going to draw what I think is going to happen in Alabama, which will also likely be a fair map, which is good to know because obviously I'm a big fan of fair maps. And the first thing to do here is draw a seat that includes Mobile with these rural black areas up here. So again, when you draw a district, you want to combine similar voters, whether that be race, class, political affiliation in some cases. And so again, when you have areas in a similar region of the state, again, this is western Alabama, southwestern Alabama, you have a lot of black voters that ideally would be put into one district so that they can kind of, elect their candidate of choice. It would not make sense to, take this half, put it with the super red rural areas up here, and then take the other half and put it with more rural Republican areas down here to kind of crack their votes or their, shared influence in half. So we're going to put them in one seat, and we're going to see where that takes us. So we're just going to kind of grab the city of Mobile. It won't be perfect. I haven't used DRA in a while. I don't, it's been years since I've used this software on a weekly basis, but we're going to do our best here, and we're going to draw a map that I think is going to be pretty fair. So we're going to take Mobile and put it with these Democratic rural areas. Again, these are majority black counties that we're kind of putting in this district. We're going to shave off some of these parts, and we're going to edit it kind of as we go here. I'm not going to edit this video too much because I want to show the full process of drawing this map to show what it would entail for anyone drawing this map. But we're going to start out by, kind of just examining how it's going to look. So we're taking Mobile, we're putting it with these bluer areas, and what that gets us is a decently Democratic-leaning district, as you can see here. It kind of creates a seat similar to the one we already have, but it rather than packing Birmingham, which is way too big to be put with these areas, it takes Montgomery and Mobile fully in, rather than over here we have Montgomery just getting cut in half, and so. We're just going to edit this a little more because I do want to make this a bit bluer. It's not really, generally speaking, when you have a seat like this that you would like to be majority black, you want to have this around 52, 53%. So it's not just a tiny majority. You want it to be decently substantial. And so we're just going to shave off some of these more white Republican rural areas and make this seat as close to a strong black majority as we can. Again, we can't go too crazy. We can't, draw a 60% black seat because then that would be packing. So you kind of have to find like the right, a nice middle spot where you have a seat that is, a strong majority black, but does not, pack them all into one district so that their voting power is diluted in other areas. So I think I like the way this looks for here. I just got to chop off a few more precincts to help it meet the population quota. And what that gets is a pretty normal seat. I think this is a decent looking seat. The geography is not great. I would like it to look better, obviously, but I think right now this is about as good as it's going to get for a seat that you want to be majority black. It's going to be sitting at, let's just check here. We're going to say, 53.7% black. That's pretty good. And so the next thing we're going to do is draw our second black seat. We'd like this to be more urban. This seat right here is kind of a mix. You have urban areas like Mobile and Birmingham, but it's really carried by these rural black voters. I'll make it easier for you guys to look at here once I kind of show you. But as you can see here, let's see. As you can see here, we have this district, which I would like to overlay, but whatever. But as you can see here, we have this seat that takes in these rural black areas out in the western part of the state and integrates them with Montgomery and Mobile, and that gets you a pretty balanced district. And so we're going to do kind of a similar thing up here, but this seat, again, like I said, will be a lot more urban because we're taking Tuscaloosa, which is where the University of Alabama is, and lumping it in with the city of Birmingham, which is another, Democratic part of Alabama. And so that's going to be kind of hard to do because, again, these are cities that have very red suburbs, and so you can't really take a lot of surrounding areas, but we'll do our best to get a seat that gives black voters the best representation they can get, within the realm of possibility. And again, what that gets you is a pretty Democratic-looking district right here. It's going to obviously elect a Democrat, but I do want to check on the current population quota and the demographics. Again, this seat is less black than our other one, but again, the goal of this map is not to draw two majority black districts. You want to have one strong majority black seat and then have another seat that is plurality black and would likely elect their candidate of choice, which in this case seems to be a Democrat. Black voters in Alabama were over 90% for Biden. And so in a map where you have a seat that is majority black, you would like to see it vote pretty, strongly for Biden. So that's going to give us a district that looks pretty similar to this. I don't want to edit it too much. I don't want to, get too specific with this, but I do want to have a reasonable population quota. And so what that does is once we shave off these lines, we're going to add on one more precinct, and I think we'll be done with it. The block feature is really not my favorite, but we'll do that. So this is the finished product of these two plurality black seats. This one's majority, this one's plurality. And what it does is essentially it creates a more proportional representation, because not only do you have now two seats in which black voters are the predominant voter group, but you also have seats that represent the partisanship of the state. Again, Alabama is a red state, no doubt about it, but it is not, 6-1 red. It's much closer to 5-2 or 4-3, and so I think this map does a better job of expressing Alabama's politics as well as its racial diversity. So we're just going to finish it up here. There's not going to be as much of a focus placed on the Republican districts because, again, they've kind of already been carved out. There's not too much to say here. The only thing I do want to talk about is Huntsville, just because I think that's kind of an interesting part of Alabama politically. I've always been a bit of a Huntsville nerd because I think that it's really underrated in terms of its politics. But other than that, I think we're going to get a pretty similar map to last time. We're going to have really red districts outside of Birmingham and the Mobile to Montgomery seat that I drew earlier. So once I'm done with this, the map's going to look pretty similar to what it currently is, aside from the whole racial gerrymandering part. And so we're just going to finish this. And so this is the finished product. As you can see, we have created a pretty similar map, I guess you could say. We maintain that, exurban Birmingham seat that is super Republican. We have the reddest seat in the country over here. I believe that's going to be the 6th district, which, as I'll show you here, is really red. It's almost 80% Republican, which is crazy to think about. But I do want to talk about the Huntsville seat, because the Huntsville seat is a long-term sleeper. It voted for Trump by 25. It wouldn't flip in the decade. But if you look at the 2017 Senate race, which, again, was a very, very specific race that is not likely to be replicated again, this seat actually did vote for Doug Jones by about 3%. So it's left trending. Like if you just look at the swing between 2016 and 2020, you're going to see that the Huntsville area was, pretty favorable to Biden up here. But again, not too much to say about it. It's a Trump plus 25 seat. It wouldn't realistically have any chance of flipping, but I did want to briefly talk about that because Huntsville is interesting. So, again, just a quick video. I wanted to talk about Alabama because I think it's important. I think that I will be covering this more as the process unfolds. But this is, kind of what I'm expecting. This is also what I'm hoping, so it's more optimistic. I would like to see a fair map out of Alabama as well as out of many other states. But, for today, looks like the only state we're going to get to talk about is Alabama. So thanks for watching again. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you all in the next